Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're gonna wait 1 more minute to have everyone on board, and thanks for your interest in our Henkel Expert Talks. Good. Let's kick it off. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Expert Talks on urban air mobility. My name is Elena Campos, and I'll be coordinating the session today. I work in the marketing team here at Henkel Aviation Space and Rail, and I'm excited to be hosting this session today. I'm pleased to introduce today's speakers, Leopold König from CustomCells, Martin Cullen from TE Connectivity, and Mareike Noack from Henkel. Before I hand over to Mareike, I have a few housekeeping items to cover about this presentation and the GoToWebinar platform. First, today's webinar recording will be available on demand after the live session, and it's accessible through the same registration page you used. Please make sure you use Google Chrome for this. Next, we'd love to hear from you during today's presentation. So if you have any questions for our speakers, please feel free to send them through the chat box on the GoToWebinar panel. We'll be answering questions at the very end of the session. Feel free to use the function raise your hand in case you have any question or need any additional support. If we don't get to your question today, we will be sure to follow up afterward. And last, we'd like to encourage you to let us know how you like today's session by filling out the survey at the very end. This will help us for future expert talks and in general. So without any further comments, I'd like to kick things off by welcoming Mareike Noack, Global Market Segment Manager for Urban Air Mobility and Advanced Air Mobility. Mareike, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Elena. And welcome from my side as well. I'm very happy to be joined today by two experts in the area of urban air mobility with Leopold König and Martin Cullen. Leopold, after the panel discussion, we get a deeper glance into CustomCells' work, but please quickly introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Leopold König, and I'm one of the founders of CustomCells, a company which was founded around 10 years ago as a lithium-ion cell manufacturer. And yeah, we have a strong focus, especially on high-power cells for electric aviation and sports cars.
Thanks a lot. I would now like to ask Mr. Cullen to give us a quick self-introduction.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, for wherever you may be in the world. My name is Martin. I'm the Business Development Manager for TE Connectivity, particularly focused on eVTOL and expectation and growth movement into this very exciting world of eVTOL. And I look forward to talking to you all later and explaining how TE can help you with those solutions.
Many thanks, Martin. Then to introduce myself, I'm Mareike Noack, and I started my professional career here at Henkel 8 years ago with a strong technical background in the product development for aerospace interior applications. Parallel to this, I started my master in business chemistry, and I focused with my thesis on the urban air mobility market. As a result, I'm now responsible for the global strategy for this market segment and steer the initiatives around it. Now that we are familiar with today's speakers, I would like to set the stage and give a brief introduction into the urban air mobility market. But I think most of you are already connected to this emerging market, and you are either on the way to make big things happen, or you're an enthusiast giving this wonderful disruptive market a chance. The by far greatest potential of this market is overcoming the ground traffic limitations by taking traffic into the third dimension. To meet the demands of modern living, transport connections must be more seamless. We need to make it easier for people living in rural areas, for example, to commute to work, to reduce travel times within cities, and deliver an outstanding passenger experience. Vital supplies such as medicine and food need an easier route to be delivered. The three key pillars of UAM are technology, infrastructure, and business. Unlocking this vision requires us to overcome multiple challenges, and it requires us to discuss about those challenges and how industry is supporting to overcome them. This is why we are here today, and I'm more than happy to welcome so many interested participants around the globe. So let's kick it off with the first question. We have all seen a lot of different designs of flying taxis, and they pretty much differ from one another. Just take Lilium, EHang, and Volocopter into consideration. The design is obviously different from traditional aircraft designs. What are the design challenges OEMs are facing, and how are your products supporting to overcome these challenges, Martin?
Sure. So the eVTOL is a really interesting piece of engineering because it's not just about electrifying aircraft as we see today. There are fundamental differences in the physics of these aircraft. As you move from large aircraft to small aircraft, volume becomes more and more important. The useful fraction carrying capability of these aircraft diminishes. So you really have to make prime use of all the real estate you have, of the density in terms of power and other components inside that. So the adage of size, weight, and power of being the most important parts of aerospace design intensifies incredibly. So you have to start to think innovation. You have to be thinking about what you can do in the future. You have to manage tougher temperature increases through the wiring cable. You have to think about how you package the components and subsystems within the airframe. And it's not just about making things smaller, it's actually doing things in a different way. So with the first generation aircraft, we have components and technologies that can answer those questions. And then as we grow and as we develop, we have to come up with a different way of thinking about the ecosystem. It's more about how you use components in terms of what is their use case. How you actually go beyond thinking about a wire or a connector or a relay and think about what its purpose is, how you maintain it, how you install it, how cost effective it is to own that piece of component effectively. So it's not just about design and perhaps what has been traditionally done at our level, tier 3, it's how do we fit inside the ecosystem. There's a much broader, higher level of thinking that is required when you start thinking about novel and very challenging technologies like this.
That's a really good point. And what is really novel to those drones is, of course, the propulsion system. So what are the design challenges to custom cells that your customers are facing?
I think a big problem that on one hand, you want to maximize the amount of energy which you have inside the VTOL, and on the other hand, you want to make it safe. And this trade-off is difficult, very difficult, and it's also completely new. And it's more complex than when you transport fuel, because in the cell you have everything to cause a fire intrinsically. You have the graphite. You have a fuse cathode, and you can only control by completely new measures in traceability in the production concept, and also in the approach for quality. That's also very different to the automotive industry. The expectation on quality and of the cells is tremendously higher. This is what we are facing. Also, to avoid, you still want to build a light battery system, a lightweight battery system, but ensure that you don't have any kind of chain reactions. Even there's from one cell a thermal runaway. It's difficult, and really new.
Mm. You just quickly touched on the automotive market. Martin, do you see any differences between your automotive customers and UAM customers?
Yeah, so this is the biggest question probably facing a lot of developers in the OEM world is how much can I use from all the experience that TE and other companies have had actually in terms of electric vehicles. Electric vehicles, powered battery vehicles have been around for what, 15 years in the open market. So there's a huge wealth of experience there, and we're present on many automotive OEMs. And what it comes down to is the direction we're getting from EASA, FAA, CAA, is that these platforms are aircraft at the end of the day, and they will be certified to aerospace standards. So that drives different behaviors in terms of product design, and as Leopold mentioned, in terms of manufacturability as well. So the whole traceability, going from a small component through to a large subsystem, completely changes once you have to consider an aerospace certification and qualification process. And a lot of discussions I've had with startup companies has been, think about what your end game is here. Think about how you're going to get certified, how you're going to qualify this aircraft. And while we can leverage all of our experience in automotive, we have, say, a lot of components that we can move across into the aerospace world quite easily, but we have to do it in the right way. We have to qualify those parts because the world is a very different place. The safety requirements for aerospace is a very different place than it is from automotive, but certainly a great deal of experience that we are leaning on in the automotive world to bring it into the aerospace grade of components and technology.
Do you have any points to add, Leopold?
Yes, it's about the similarities between the automotive industry and the UAM market. I can add that the risk assessment is different also, that from my point of view, and also the cell by itself is a different cell than the automotive cell. The basic manufacturing processes are the same, but the expectation on traceability and on like 100% quality control is different. And also the setup of the cell is a different one, while the automotive industry is reaching out for maximizing the volumetric energy density. It's in the aerospace market, it's all about the gravimetric energy density. So on the end, this makes a different design of the cell.
Is it the case that your customers are only interested in aerospace product solutions because they are certified to aerospace already, or are they also making use of automotive certified portfolio for the battery section?
They do. I know that they are using uncertified products, some using automotive products, but on the end, most of these companies will face the same roadblock on the end of the day, and that it will happen when they want to start transporting people, because these cells are not qualified, and you cannot ensure that there is no thermal runaway. When you have a car, you might have the option to get out of the car. In an airplane, it's a lot more difficult. So I think it's completely fine to make the next steps when you build up a new technology. Do it based on something what exists. For example, Tesla also used on the beginning notebook cells, and that's fine. But when you want to finish this development and bring it really into a market and for daily usage, then you also need to go the next steps in the battery on the cell.
So you see a lot of new generations of batteries coming up in the future.
I think there are not many companies. I don't know any company which is targeting really to be qualified as a cell manufacturer for electric aviation. we had a screening of the market, and we are pretty far with the EN 9100, establishing it in our pilot plant in Tübingen. But there are no others, I think, which are currently working on this.
How's
Correct
the
me if
situation
I'm wrong.
within? It's your market, but I think they need to be some more battery generations, and not only different companies, but different generations coming up in the future to overcome this gap.
That's an evolution, and that's the same evolution like you have faced also in the automotive industry. And on the beginning, everyone tells it's impossible what these companies are trying, and the goals are not reachable. And 10 years later, you have the car which is driving 1,000 kilometers, or you will also have a jet which will reach a certain distance. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah.
The new technologies we see coming up on the horizon in electrochemistry. They are also really I think there's a bright future for battery technology also in aviation, regarding the cost, but also traveling distances.
How's the situation within TE Connectivity? Are your customers focusing on the aerospace portfolio only, or is it within your broad portfolio as well?
I'd say what we're seeing at the moment is probably 80–90% of sales are within the aerospace product range, and the balance is coming from the automotive range. So that's pretty much kind of what we are seeing in our sales at the moment for the eVTOL area. So it's good to see that, actually, because you don't want to you want to have be part of a successful product at the end of the day. And sometimes I say product, I mean platform. We don't want to have a platform that has failed certification because they've used a TE component that is from the automotive world, or a custom cell or another battery, or other type of components come from a non-aerospace world and is part of a critical system. So it's actually interesting that some of the rumors coming from EASA and the FAA is that the distributed electrical power system may be type certified, just as propellers and engines are today. We may see battery packs that are type certified. We may see motors that are type certified, or we'll see the complete system that is type certified. So again, the various standards committees are still working this up. So we are having to be cautious, but the expectation is that, as I said before, we will be working towards an aerospace world, and we have a huge history in aerospace in terms of high power connectivity. We're present on Airbus and Boeing and many other OEMs and engine manufacturers as well. And it takes that type of credibility and history to ensure that we do bring the right product for the customer, which is why it's important to keep focusing on their aerospace components as the prime solution for eVTOL. They optimize for the size, for the power, for the ruggedness, for the fire standards, for example, that the automotive industry is just does not have to pass to meet. So yeah, it is these higher stringent levels where our aerospace products really did excel in. And we're very, very keen to be at the forefront of the technology going forward to as part of the eVTOL world, because let's not forget that eVTOL is very much the here and now, but in the 2030, 2035 era with Airbus program for 0E, a lot of the large commercial airframes will be electric powered, will have very high voltages, very high currents flowing through them, and they have effects of flying at altitude with corona, essentially with particle discharge in these airframes and along the wires at high voltage and high altitude, where you have to design components specifically for that environment. The jackets and insulation material has to be effective to withstand such high voltage at those kind of altitudes. And this is just a question that the automotive world, the other industries do not have to work on. And this is the sort of technology that we are working on now, that we see eVTOL as here and now, but the end game is that there's going to be bigger challenges to support the sustainability aims of 2050 and 2035.
When we go a little bit deeper into those requirements of the product solutions you just mentioned, how are you doing it at TE?
So we have a very extensive range of components that we've only ever been asked to qualify to certain levels of standards, whether it's voltage and current. So first program has been to actually characterize the components we already have to understand just what the limitations are. We've had to go away and look at our core capabilities in terms of our modeling and our physics. So we are expanding our engineering understanding at some of these higher levels as well. So that's kind of the very first step before we get into designing components. You have to ensure that we have the right capabilities in-house. And that is launching programs of research and development. That is understanding what the future may be. So we've had quite a lot of close work on programs like eFanX, working with Rolls-Royce and Airbus to understand what their requirements are and making sure that our components are able to meet those standards today and those intents today. And then ultimately is putting together multi-generational plans for technology and for products. But even eVTOL is the first stepping stone in that, and as I mentioned, a lot of the standards aren't quite known yet, and it's a really exciting time to understand that you have to be agile, you have to be flexible, and you have to have the willingness to try out different things. You have to have the desire to push yourself and push your capabilities, to understand that there will be cases that don't work and there will be technology that doesn't end up going down the direction you want, but you have to understand that is all learning, and that is all about understanding and growing our capabilities. So it's great to be part of that, and it's great to be part of eVTOL that gets you down that direction. And it's one of the key things we've had to go do is really, as I mentioned, understand more about the ecosystem, understand more about the subsystem, not just about the components. We have to think a lot differently than perhaps we've done in the past, and perhaps what the industry as a whole has done about connectivity as well. So it's a lot of challenging ourselves as well as challenging our customers as well about what their expectations are.
Definitely, yes. Leopold, is there a difference how you outline your product requirements?
We outline the product requirements. Maybe you need to ask this question in a different way.
So are you kind of developing the cells on your daily basis to which kind of requirements? To your customer requirements? Are you putting it by yourself? How are you outlining those ones?
All right. That difference on the project. Our major aviation partner right now is Lilium. So we focus the application also of Lilium. And if you would compare a volocopter to a Lilium, these are on the end different cells. And so that's how we are working on a daily basis. And what we need to do is to find the optimal trade-off between a high energy density and a high power density, and combine it with an acceptable life cycle rating, and also maintain the safety, and that's a big challenge. We happily don't need to face it alone. We have plenty of partners which support us in this project, and I guess that we very soon will be able to build the next generation of prototype cells.
This would have been my next question. When you're talking about the higher power density batteries, what is the timeline? When you say very soon, we can expect it before 2024, which a lot of those startups put at their starting date?
Yeah, if you need to differ between series production and prototyping. For the prototypes, we are ongoing and working on these cells. For example, for the automotive projects, we will have a new high power cell finished by the end of the year already, and for the electric aviation, we're expecting it will be very soon, and not this year, but probably next year that we have new prototypes. The question is if we would reach then already the targets or the goals we have or not, and then the main challenge is if you on one hand to build something which is working in the laboratory is one thing, but to scale it up and bring it into series production is a different job, and also extremely complex and underestimated from many also competitors which are new in the industry, in the cell manufacturing industry. And that is what we can do in Tübingen, that we have the experience there to scale up, to ramp up manufacturing process to series production. And this environment is also this year completely changed. It's running since March already of this year, so we can manufacture the cells up to 500,000 cells each year. It's a pilot plant, but will be redesigned to suit the aspects of, for example, pre-lithiated electrodes and high silicon content electrodes.
Okay, that sounds very good. We are now on the battery future side as well. Martin, TE is doing all down the wire, as you say. Mm-hmm. What are the challenges and timeline implications for the implementation of autonomous flying vehicles?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I have heard various experts say that autonomy in the air is going to be a lot simpler than autonomy on the ground. There's far fewer obstacles when you're up at 2,000 or 3,000 feet compared to at ground level, which is kind of an interesting concept, really. Obviously, when we talk about autonomy, we have to talk about the AI aspect of it, which is one element, but then it's also about the data connectivity. So when we can expect maybe 2030, we have traffic lanes in the air of eVTOL aircraft that may be time dependent. You can imagine that rush hour in the morning will be different to the 2 o'clock lunchtime movement of vehicles in the air. Where we have today, we have flight paths fixed in time. They may well be adapted for particular flexible working and other considerations. So the challenges to do that is obviously, yes, AI and computation, but data connectivity as well. So I expect to see a very high bandwidth of data between individual airframes, between buildings, between landing ports. So the challenge about autonomy is multi-dimensional in many ways. Time, physical space, bandwidth, processing speed, how you have a platform that is self-aware in terms of its position with other vehicles, its health condition, its duration of batteries or flight path. So yes, it's multidimensional in many ways, and by no means are we anywhere near close to that. I think we're not going to see autonomous vehicles until 2030, 2035 timeframe. But we have to get there, so purely because of the economics and because of the number of pilots available. We'll probably see some movement to remote piloted aircraft before that 2030 timeline. Yeah, it's definitely going to be something that's essential to success of this domain.
Yes, and what I would like to add is, of course, the regulations need to be fixed in advance, and of course the public perception and the safety of those devices. I mean, with the bandwidth and everything, this is covered, but it's kind of a difference between technologically covered and from public safety feeling covered.
Yes, there's definitely an opportunity for fiber optics and high-speed copper in there, and we were seeing a lot of in LEO satellites, fiber optic light connectivity between constellations. So again, that's a technology that perhaps could be used in the eVTOL world as well, to have a direct line of sight connectivity. So there's some very interesting concepts that may form part of the future that we haven't even thought about today.
Maybe something more practical, Leopold. Where do you see the pros and cons for fast charging versus swappable battery packs?
Versus the swappable battery packs, I don't really believe in battery pack swapping. It's a solution for not optimal configured battery technology, and also had somehow already dead in the automotive industry. When the automotive industry started, everyone was mainly speaking about the swapping of battery and having one standard for cars, but it didn't happen. And I think the same happens to the electric aviation, that the fast charging abilities of cells are getting better and better, and there are basically no cons when the cell is specified for this usage. The fast charging, it will be also able to deal with these temperatures, and the electrolytes are improving, and so I think it will be outdated very soon.
Okay, that's interesting. And actually here we are, I am with my last question already, which is pointing on the overall UAM concept, actually, sustainability along the complete supply chain. Martin, what are your expectations along the value chain to support your daily business and your innovation work for new materials on regards to sustainability?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question because I mean, one of the big drivers for electric aviation is to improve the sustainability of aviation, to have zero emissions at high altitude in particular, or within dense, high population, high density cities. And emissions isn't just about chemicals; it's also about noise as well. So the sustainability aspects, you can talk about how we can be part of that bigger picture of improving the quality of life in terms of climate change, or in terms of having aircraft that perhaps more socially responsible in that sense. But there's also, you can talk about the UN SDGs, where we open up a lot more opportunity to individuals to be more mobile at a more cost-effective rate. They'll be able to travel between perhaps learning centres from perhaps remote areas, for example, at a much cheaper, more viable application of mode of transport than perhaps they have today. So the sustainability aspect is, I think, not just about how perhaps we're part of a bigger picture in terms of climate change, but it's actually also what we can do for society as a whole, which I think is an important element that perhaps gets missed a little bit from the world of eVTOL and UAM. That it is actually about changing how society interacts with one another. So I think that's a key part to have at the back of our minds when we progress through, and some of the challenges we have ahead is that's kind of a bigger picture that electric aviation and the eVTOL can offer.
Mm. Leopold, where do you see your support for sustainability in the short term and your long-term innovation work for sustainability?
When I started to work in the battery industry, the cells contained a very high amount of cobalt. That was the standard material, the lithium cobalt oxide cells. And these materials, that we all knew that that's a scarce material, and it's expensive and it's poisonous. So the chemists and engineers worked 10 years on reducing the amount of cobalt in the cells, and even got better on the way. So the cells today contain almost no cobalt anymore, or a little amount compared to the old cells. And so you get a footprint which is getting greener and greener. When also 10 years ago you were burning all the cells from, like, the recycling process was burning the cells and getting out some part of materials and get it in, use it then later for steel or something like this, because it was mostly polluted. And that's also different today. You have a very high recycling rate, which is possible, and BASF, for example, is installing a recycling line like this in Germany, in Schwarzheide, and you get a tracking of the CO2 footprint, which has been nobody speaking about. When I started, you were speaking about child labor and the excavation of cobalt. This is also not the topic anymore, and like this, the whole industry moves in this direction, and the same is what we are trying. We are trying to be part of it with our company, and try to understand which processes are critical and harm the environment, and which are not, and to keep the CO2 footprint low. Otherwise, the whole thing, what we're doing, makes only limited sense, right? And we are, on one hand, a battery manufacturer, but on the other hand, we are also believing in a green future.
Yeah, and this is going hand in hand. That's right.
It is, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you both for your input in this discussion. And yeah, if the audience has some questions we did not cover so far, and I guess there are plenty of questions, please feel free to type them in the chat so we can answer them in the Q&A session afterwards. Yeah, but now let's move to our experts' presentations about their companies, and we will start with the overview on CustomCells.
So I can. You switch the pages, or do I have to do it? Can I click
Elena is
somewhere?
doing it. Yeah, Elena
Okay.
is doing it.
All right. So yeah, I mostly said everything necessary. You can see here in the background some pictures in our running production in Tübingen, which is a really superior quality in production environment. And I have some slides attached to show what are the next steps to fit for the aviation industry. Can you go to the next slide? So this is the company, how it's basically built up. We're trying to integrate in the value chain. We have strong cooperation partners in raw materials, but also for battery system, and as I said, for recycling. In-house, we can provide the value chain from electrolytes over prototype cells. This is a production site located in North Germany, and Tübingen is high quality series cell production for aviation located in southern Germany. And Porsche, there you can also see is that's a joint venture. We have together with Porsche to build now prototype cells for around 1,000 car every year. Yeah, for high power cells, bringing the new technologies into the Porsche cars. Can go on. Okay, that's basically the pictures only from the yeah. Okay, Okay, here you can see a picture of the dry room on the right side, and as I said, we qualify this environment right now for the EN 9100, and we are improving the whole environment also to that we are able to manufacture the next generation materials. So the dry room will be extended. We change equipment. We have a software concept which is able then to provide all the data, and we even store production data later in the battery management system on which we want to place into the vehicles. I think that's everything what you need to show. That's fine for me. Here you see the approach. That's a cell on the left side, the development goals, but it's for the automotive industry, and it has got around 300 watt-hours per kilogram and 700 watt-hours per liter. And we prepared already the pilot plant that we can switch to this technology, because if you're working with silicon anode, you have a lot higher swelling inside the cell. The graphite cells maybe swell around 8%, but silicon anode-based cells swell up to 20%, around 20%. And you need to put pressure on the tracer and the formation equipment you see on the right. And this is just an example picture that some of the equipment is already prepared for it. Some will be re-engineered already this year. Thanks. That's the closed loop of information, which is also new in basically in the industry. That we have a lot of inline sensors. You can see RFID chips or cameras and any kind of different sensors, and we have a constant in every like 14 major production steps you have for the cell. We are measuring KPIs, and we combine these KPIs and bring it into the BMS on one hand, but also use it in our production to recalibrate critical processes, which are like in the ordinary and traditional manufacturing environment not under control. And that's how we are trying to get better with a yield. A typical world scale series production has got a loss of products around like 30 to 40% in the production. And this we want to change. These are from one project we are currently working on, where we store this information into the BMS. These are examples of the information we are currently tracking and bring into the battery system. So after you have the end of life of the battery system, you still have this data, and you can continuously work with it and analyze why did, for example, cell number 543 fail, or why did it swell too much, or why did it delaminate, and so on. And that's the idea behind it. And that's self-explaining. That's the idea behind it, that we want to close the information cycle from the raw materials really to the recycling process and back. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you for this good insight into custom cells. And yeah, now Martin, over to you to get a brief introduction to TE connectivity.
Sure. So I'll talk you through TE connectivity and what we are doing within eVTOL and UAM and AAM and all the various other acronyms that are out there for this domain. If you go to the next slide, please. So TE connectivity, we are a very large company that we produce connectivity components for a multitude of markets out there. Our turnover last year was over $12 billion. We play in the transportation, industrial and communications business. I myself, I'm from the aerospace, defense and marine business unit within industrial. And we We have over $1 billion worth of sales, working with the commercial air business, defense, land and ground, and land and air, and also then oil and gas, as well as other domains such as space. We have technology on Voyager, actually, as well as on Mars. So we have a huge spread of product. We worked with, as I mentioned, aerospace standards to ensure we have appropriate components for the aerospace domain. And subsequently, we have a lot of product brand names, which a lot of our customers will know some of, if not all of them. So we are a market leader within the aerospace and defense business. And if you ditch through the next slide, you'll see how eVTOL, as I mentioned earlier, go back a bit. Sorry, just go back a little bit. One slide. There you go. So I just want to make the point that within our transportation business, there in the blue text, we have the automotive and commercial transportation business that we are leaning on to bring in their expertise in the high voltage, high current domain into the aerospace environment to make sure that we have appropriate components for eVTOL. So we've got a broad reach and a broad product range and broad experience that well suited to eVTOL. Next slide. So just quickly, these are some of the connectors, for example, that we produce, a range of circular, square, board-to-board or I/O type connectors, ranging from large power connectors through to some of the micro circular connectors. And we manufacture all the way down to the contacts. So we have a broad range of connectors and solutions for data, for power, for fiber optic as well. So many decades of experience in this domain. Next slide. Power connectors, obviously very important for this application of eVTOL. And we have, again, a lot of experience with high current connectors, the 38999 standard of connectors. We have some innovative products like SnapLug and other busbar type connectors. A lot of our customers are using copper light, which is an aluminium style connector, which is very important, again, for saving weight. But the orange connectors below, you may actually recognize from our auto business. So again, this is kind of where we have a broad experience within the automotive domain, and we can bring towards aerospace as well. So this is kind of one of the advantages that TE has in having such a broad portfolio and applications. Next slide. Relays and contactors. Again, we've seen a lot of applications come to us at the very first instance about asking us what relays and contactors we have that work in a high current, high voltage domain. And naturally, we are the only source there for flight qualified contactors. Our biggest contactor there is 1,000 amps, 1,000 volts. And this is all flight certified. So this is kind of what is very important, again, for this domain, that we have the right components for aerospace that perhaps cannot be found elsewhere. But we, again, have a broad breadth of current, of voltage applications and experience in this, from power distribution to low voltage as well. So, and we do create some value add solutions of power distribution units as well that we have on various aircraft flying today. Next slide. Power cables, wiring cable, again, one of our strengths. We have aluminium cables as well as copper cables, and a lot of our customers like to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of switching between aluminium and copper. We also have a broad product range of highly flexible cables. Again, these tight environments, or where you have a tilting rotor or a tilt wing configuration, flexibility is very important in those applications. Again, we have a lot of experience with military business and commercial aerospace business for very unique applications for flexibility and power and volumetric constraints. We're also doing some very innovative solutions with flat cable. Again, with the volume constraints, we are actually found some advantages with going to or trying to maintain the 2 dimensions of the flat cable actually offers. So this is again something that we are keen to work with our customers to see what we can do in a novel way that maybe they haven't thought about. Next slide. Fibre optics, again, a huge experience, whether it's in spacecraft or in in-flight entertainment systems on an Airbus or a Boeing. We have a whole host of connectors and transceivers, very high data rates therein, board level, as well as intercable connectors. We work with Vita and SOSA standards as well, and we have, again, some unique technology that help us to convert data signal into light signal as well. Next slide. Value add products, obviously we produce harnesses, but we have a unique product for distribution of power or signals with mini MRP that does enable designers of aircraft to think differently about where they put the avionics. We have done a lot of work on cable management with novel components and even bus bar designs as well, which fit very well with these applications. Next slide. And this kind of brings it together. So we have, again, looked at what eVTOL is and where our components fit, and you can see relays and connectors, cables, and also some of our automotive products there, charging inlets and disconnect switches as well, which we are promoting as possible solutions for eVTOL. Next slide. And we've looked at this to quite a large degree. Very early days, about a year or so ago, we put together this model to understand how we fit within eVTOL, and we actually very simply came up with 100 different components that TE can meet across the various subsystems, and over 700 items actually within that architecture. Next slide. And we actually have an app as well. Oh, one thing. We do actually have an app for our customers as well that they can download from our website, an augmented reality that can step into that aircraft and see what products we have to meet their use case. And that is all from me.
Thank you, Martin. And yeah, with the upcoming slides, I would like to emphasize the sustainability aspect of Henkel and the advanced urban air mobility. We at Henkel are looking at sustainability not just from the point of aspects of material and vehicle design, but how does it establish along the entire value chain? And I would say for us, it has definitely always been something very core to what we have done, but we have now put it as a strategic pillar. And I think everybody is aware about the currently ongoing discussions, but our technology and solutions with bonding, sealing, coating, will have an impact, a positive impact on solving the current and future global environmental and social challenges. We have divided our approach into 3 strategic pillars: CO2 energy saving and dematerialization, circular economy, and health and safety. Those are the key aspects, and unfortunately, we have water scarcity as well, but this intersects with many of those topics. For time reasons, I just want to highlight the health and safety point, which is very critical to us as a material supplier. Whether it's the materials that we are using at our production facilities, whether it's the formulated products that are going to our customers' assembly lines, or it's about the use phase later on, such as flame retardants that impact our end customers, for example. So we are really looking into the overall reduction of harmful materials. And we are taking a really proactive approach to this to really drive safety and transparency throughout the value chain. But what does Henkel can offer besides this sustainability subject? Next slide, please. Across our company, we have a history of expertise in aerospace, space, and defense segments, and with our adhesives and coatings. Our engineers and technicians have developed and qualified our products in over 5,000 aerospace OEM specifications. And this is everything from structural materials like film or paste, composite materials, and MRO solutions. We do have a lot of experience in electronics, electronically conductive adhesives, and thermal interface materials as well. And this experience we now apply on the drone segment. When we look into leveraging the expertise from adjacent industries, certainly the one that always counts is e-mobility and automotive. A lot of challenges that has been overcome in the last years in terms of electrification is now coming towards aerospace and advanced air mobility. But other segments like in industries like power conversion and industrial automation, as well as datacom and telecom, do have a lot of overlap in how the systems and technologies can be attributed into the UAM segment. And we are really trying to support this end-to-end value chain because I think that's ultimately the overarching goal within the electrification of eVTOLs and in advanced air mobility topics. We also have a global footprint with innovation, production, quality, and commercial function in each region. And we believe we can contribute to the future by partnering with aviation leaders in the space of electrification and urban air mobility, and especially in the early design phase, and really building up strategic partnerships to support the UAMs, or the component suppliers and the designers. On the next slide, we see that we also would like and can support fundamental research with academics and technology startups through multiple different joint funding opportunities and our corporate venture capital wing, Henkel Tech Ventures. We here identify, establish, and scale some of the breakthrough innovations of new technologies to drive this industry forward with our involvement and really make a difference in the segments that are being developed. Please go to the next slide, where we will watch a video to get an idea of some of the technologies that are just touched on. And you know, we can help support on the material side, but we can also help on the design side with some of our application engineers. Here we can see some EMI shielding material, component attach materials, underfill, ECA, solders, and yeah, we can really help you on how to design your boards with a lot of expertise. But also other materials we think can support on the overall increased electrification, not just on the drone itself, but on electricity, electric powertrains, and batteries, of course. And I think this is where we are at the end of the video. And to get a bit of technical input, I just quickly wanted to raise attention to our infusion resin, series 9500 IO. And this is supporting you when thinking about the scale-up phase of the drones. It has a rapid cure, low viscosity for excellent preparation, and of course, resistant to chemicals. If you're interested in a detailed discussion about our technical expertise, not only on infusion resin, but all the other portfolios we have just saw in this presentation, please reach out to us. We are happy to help. Thanks a lot for your interest so far. I see we are very short on time, but Elena, are there any questions from the audience that we can answer?
We do. So the first is shortly to Leopold. Are battery manufacturers actively looking to cooperate with component suppliers to supply superior joint solutions?
Was it a question? Didn't understand the question.
Correct.
Can you repeat it, please?
Yes. Are battery manufacturers actively looking to cooperate with component suppliers to supply superior joint solutions?
Yeah, of course. We everyone who's trying to improve technology, we are seeking permanently to get better components and better material resources.
Thank you. We have one to Martin. Does TE combine its broad portfolio of individual components into system solutions for its customers?
So that is something we do already for harnesses, for example. We have done some concept work on integrated bus bars as well, and it's something that we always consider when putting together potential solutions in terms of the wire and cable fit, in terms of the cable management. I think the eVTOL aspect will take that to the next level. And certainly when we think about integrating with the airframe, I've already alluded to how we consider flat cable as a potential solution that fits very well with eVTOL. But then we have to work with the airframers about how we route that through their airframe, how they connect that to their, or attach that to their airframe. So at the moment we are a component supplier, but we would never supply just a component without thinking about the ecosystem. And I think we'll see more of that becoming a stronger point for TE to kind of showcase how we can help with that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. One more briefly, please. For cable application, do you see limitations in some aluminum alloys used with high voltage, especially when magnesium content is high?
That's beyond my technology awareness, I'm afraid, talking to the constitution of aluminium cable. At the moment, I haven't had any customers challenge our composition on aluminium composition. It tends to be a straight discussion about the size and weight, the trade-offs between aluminium and copper. I certainly can, if there's a specific question behind that, I'd be happy to take that to our wire and cable experts to give a more technical answer. So yeah, please contact me and we perhaps can feedback the specific information you'd like to know.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I would just like to wrap up with a quick highlight. We are hosting another session. This one is going to be a technical webinar on surface preparation, also for the aerospace industry and specifically on electronics for aerospace. And we are hosting BTG Labs. And if you want to register, you can scan the code here or also use the same registration page that you used to register for this session. With this, I would like to thank everyone for your interest, especially to our panelists, Leopold König. Thank you so much. Martin Cullen, thanks for joining, and Mareike Noack, thanks for hosting the session and for the great insights that you gave us all into this third dimension, as we can call it. And with this, thanks a lot. Thanks for your interest and your time, and see you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.